An all-world type player is set to visit Ole Miss right after the dead period, and we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, wide receiver happens for a reason, so we probably should get excited about that, right? Yeah, you know me. We're going to get excited about it.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports. Thank you very much for joining us. Today on the show, we talk about how stocked Ole Miss's linebacker room should be, that a part-time starter from a year ago is going to have a really great spring if he wants to play. Caleb Cunningham is set to visit the Rebels shortly, and the playoff changes are official. And also, Ole Miss goes to Starkville, Mississippi today to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Pretty fired up about all that. Also, today is everydayer David Holly's 65th birthday. So if you see this Rebel, wish him a happy birthday from everyone at Locked On Ole Miss. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you very much for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers that make the show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. We are continuing our pre-spring look at all the position rooms that Ole Miss has, and today will be the linebackers. And we're going to focus a little bit on the size-speed ratio that Ole Miss got a little bit bigger coming into this season. This isn't necessarily any type of a slam or anything like that, but going from the Chris Partridge, 326 to what Pete Golding is doing is required them to get a little bit bigger as well. We all know that Pete Golding, I guess at this point we can say, is from the Nick Saban school, to where matching up is always going to be a big deal about him. So if he needs to go big, he's going to go big. If he needs to go small, he needs to be able to go small. All of that stuff is going to be important for Pete Golding. We're going to start out with Khari Coleman. Khari Coleman is coming back for his last year, like his sixth year of school. Last year had 32 solo tackles, 2.5 sacks, had a forced fumble in the game. You looked at him whenever he was up and down throughout the year. He struggled against Alabama. He played pretty well against Georgia. He played very well against Texas A&M. So teams that matched up with Ole Miss where speed was the predominant thing, he did pretty well. Whenever teams just wanted to get powerful with you, he struggled a little bit. So Khari Coleman coming back this year. He's 6'1", 6'2", 220 pounds, a smallish type linebacker. He is going to be a guy that Pete Golding is going to look to in games where quickness and speed is necessary. Also, Khari Coleman came to Ole Miss as a defensive end from TCU under Gary Patterson. He still has that skill, that tool in his bag. I would not be completely surprised if we saw Khari Coleman rushing the passer from time to time a little bit this year as well. We're starting with Khari Coleman because it's important that people realize he has to have a really good spring because of the pieces that Ole Miss have brought into the linebacker room, the size-speed ratio of those players, and kind of what is standing in front of him currently in the linebacker room at Ole Miss, because this is a part-time starter. This is somebody that played a lot of football a year ago. But when you look at the players that Ole Miss brought in, it started out with the transfer, and we talked about that on this show. That's the reason I kind of quote tweeted my tweet from back in December, talking about how should Ole Miss prioritize Chris Paul from Arkansas in the portal. And they obviously did, because he did get recruited. He committed to Ole Miss, and he is probably going to be a leader in this room. You can see his grades at Arkansas a year ago from PFF. Really, really good football player. And he's also a 6'1", 6'2", 240-pound linebacker. He's a real linebacker. He's going to be wearing number 27 at Ole Miss from Crisp County, Georgia, listed at 6'1", 235. Size, speed ratio, because he can go sideline to sideline a little bit as well. Now, other players that are listed on the roster, you have TJ Dudley, who is another 6'1" type, 230-pound type linebacker. He played the jack position, Cedric Johnson's position, at defensive end in the Peach Bowl. And in that time, he had a pretty good football game to the point where everybody was looking forward to him coming back and actually playing linebacker. So the question was going to be, is he going to play that jack position, which Princely Amon-Mielen is likely going to end up there as well. But we will see if TJ Dudley, if he goes into that linebacker room, because I could see him playing next to Pooh Paul, and that is going to lead you down a road to where you have two essentially 235-pound, 240-pound running backs behind that defensive line going sideline to sideline. Now, the question is going to be, are you going to look at some smaller type linebackers that are a little bit more athletic? And one of the players that obviously everybody's going to think about is Suntarine Perkins. Suntarine Perkins ended up with 38 tackles a year ago, 5.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. He had 1 quarterback hurry. Other than the quarterback hurry statistic, which I don't know if that's a statistic worth following, honestly. But other than that, he had remarkably similar numbers in year one as a true freshman as Cedric Johnson, who played in the Senior Bowl. Just thought I would point that out. Now, Suntarine Perkins is an undersized linebacker. He's listed at 6'3", 205 pounds. He needs to put on some weight to play. If he's going to play linebacker, he needs to put on some weight, or else he is going to become a matchup that other teams are going to try and exploit. And it's not because of his athletic ability. He has a chance to be an all-world type player. But if he's going to play linebacker, he needs to put on 15 to 20 pounds before the start of the football season. If he's going to play that nickelback position, that extra linebacker position to where he's going to split time with, like, say, a John Saunders, then yes, he can play at this weight. But if he is going to play linebacker in college, if he is going to make that transition that Harold Perkins essentially last year tried to make at LSU, he needs to put on a little bit of weight. And if he does that, if he gets up to 220 pounds, he's going to be on the field every down. If his athletic ability is kept, he's going to be on the field every down. And we'll see exactly how that goes. Suntarine Perkins, really, really good football player for Ole Miss. And you look at those main players, you have starters that are probably going to be some version of Chris Paul, TJ Dudley, Suntarine Perkins, Khari Coleman. Okay. And then you have Raymond Collins. Raymond Collins is 6'2", 240. We have some highlights of him here. He is an athletic dude. He can go sideline to sideline. He is somebody that I would not be surprised if he was on the field game one this season against whoever they're playing. Are they playing Wofford or somebody like that? Their FCS game. It would not surprise me at all. Or Furman is who they play. If he is on the field against that team. He is somebody that can go sideline to sideline. He's athletic. He instinctually knows how to deal with blockers. He is honestly the type of linebacker that Alabama would bring in years past, and he ends up playing on the line. You're like, whoa, this was a JUCO guy. This is the type player that Raymond Collins is developing into. So you're talking about 5 deep right there for 2 positions, because that's one thing we need to pay attention to as well. There's really 2 positions in the linebacker position because of that hybrid defensive back, 5th defensive back player. So if you're looking at 2 linebackers, you're going to have somebody that has a little bit of weight to him, TJ Dudley, Chris Paul, Raymond Collins, and then you have like the athletic guys of Khari Coleman and Suntarine Perkins. You can see why, in my mind, Khari Coleman has to have a really good spring football period this year to get ready for fall camp. because of the depth that has been developed in that linebacker room. Talking about players that have been signed recently, you have Trip White from Little Rock. He is another 6'3", 200. He needs to put on some weight as well. You have Tyler Banks, which the staff absolutely loves. He has 2 letters. He's 6'3", 235. He's got the size to get everything done. He just needs to get on the field as well. And then Skylar Mann, who is from Peach County in Georgia, is another player that needs to put on just a little bit more weight, but he is being developed in a fashion that he is going to fit that size speed ratio that Ole Miss is going for. Linebackers, Ole Miss is pretty set. There's 2 positions. They're going about 3 deep at the moment at the linebacker position. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But TJ Dudley, Chris Paul, Suntarine Perkins, Khari Coleman, those guys, Raymond Collins, they're going to stand out for Ole Miss this season as well. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and we're just getting started. We are taking Locked On recruiting analyst Brian Smith's word, and we are following the post-dead period visits. And lo and behold, the number 1 player in Mississippi is coming. We talk about that next. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, GameTime.co takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. They have all-in prices that show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out, and you can buy tickets in 2 taps. Click, click, you are done. They are obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has the deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets from football, basketball, baseball, concerts, theater, and more, and with zone deals. This is really cool, by the way. You just pick the section and let Game Time pick the tickets, and you can get extra savings as well. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price, even if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Use code Locked On for your first purchase. Again, use code Locked On for your first purchase at Game Time. Download that Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, so we're doing a little bit of recruiting right now. And this just broke recently. I think it was Chad Simmons from On3. If I'm wrong on that, I'm wrong. But I think it's from On3. Caleb Cunningham, the number 1 prospect in Mississippi, an absolute freak of a wide receiver. You're talking about somebody that's probably in the top 15 in players in the country. He's from Ackerman, Mississippi, is going to visit Ole Miss on March 4th. The dead period ends March 3rd. As soon as the doors open in the IPF, in the Manning Center, Caleb Cunningham is visiting. And that's important. That is a big deal. That is showing that Lane Kiffin is prioritizing this young man quite a bit as well. You look at his visit schedule over the next couple of months, March 4th at Ole Miss, March 8th at LSU. He's also squeezed in a visit to Alabama on March 6th, by the way. That's not on this list. Then he goes to Florida State. He has Auburn on the list, Tennessee, Miami. All recruits that can get to Miami probably should at least visit Miami. Florida's on the list as well, as is Texas A&M. And everybody's going to say, well, where's Mississippi State? Mississippi State got a visit before the dead period. They're on this list as well. So if you want a top 10, that is probably a good idea of a top 10 for this 5-star level player out of Ackerman, Mississippi, Choctaw County High School. Good football player. Now, if you look at the highlights, he's a dominant player. He's just a dominant football player. He lines up. He's 6'4". If you look at his high school video on playing basketball, just some stupid dunks that are happening because of his athletic ability. He is a really good football player and is a priority for Ole Miss. Now, he is a real big priority for Mississippi State, and he's from like 10 minutes down the road from Starkville. This is a guy they can't lose, and they know they can't lose this guy. Ole Miss has gotten the last number one player in the state of Mississippi like the last 3 out of the last 4 years or something like that. This is a player that Mississippi State, just for PR, has to go all in and get, and they are going to go all in to try and get him. But you can see from what we put up, the big boys are going to recruit this player as well. And the big boys trying to get him, that's going to make the decision possibly a little bit more NIL based. And whenever that happens, we all know that Mississippi State's NIL collectives has not been up to snuff over the last couple of years. Now, they're going to try and go all in on this player. They might get one named player in the state of Mississippi. They're going to try and get this one just because of the PR win that can happen. Ole Miss has put wide receivers in the NFL, DK and AJ. That's the talk of the league. And there's really good football players at the wide receiver position that just, it's like an assembly line at Ole Miss. So that's going to be beneficial. The collective is going to be beneficial for Ole Miss, but make no mistake in this case, this is going to be a recruitment that goes, and Mississippi State is absolutely all in on this one. Plus, you've got the big boys coming in for him as well. He's a 5-star wide receiver. Everybody is going to recruit this young man. So we'll see exactly how it goes, but Ole Miss getting a visit as soon as the dead period ends is a very, very good sign in recruiting this young man. Now, the college football playoff has changed a little bit over the last couple of months, and they finally unanimously approved the 5-7 format for the 12-team field next season. That is, the 5 highest-ranked conference champions get an automatic bid, plus the next 7 highest-ranked teams determined by the College Football Selection Committee. So the way it works, under the 12-team playoff format that begins this fall, the 4 highest conference-ranked champions will be seeded 1 through 4. You cannot get the bye without being a conference champion. And each will receive a first-round bye, while the teams seeded 5 through 12 will play each other in a first round on the home field of the higher-ranked team. If Ole Miss is ranked 7th, they will play the 10th-rated team in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. That's the way that works. You want to be 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th. And then you get to host a playoff game in that first round. If you get a bye, those games are going to be in bowl games, but that first round is on college campuses. The quarterfinals and the semifinals will be played in New Year's 6 bowl games. So that's the Sugar, the Rose, the Fiesta, the Peach, the Cotton, and the Orange Bowl as well. And that will continue to be at a neutral site. No conference will qualify automatically, and there'll be no limited on the number of the participants of a conference. If the SEC has 7 teams that are playoff worthy, they're going to get 7 teams in. And you're not guaranteed to be a champion. If the SEC champion finishes 6th of all the conference champions out there, you're not guaranteed to get an automatic bid in that case as well. Now, the SEC is not going to do that, but I'm just saying that as well. You have a situation to where this conference or the playoff situation is, I think it's amenable. Now, what we need to is cut down that 5th champion down to probably 3. Realistically, the Sun Belt or Conference USA or the Mountain West or the MAC, they all have no business getting an automatic bid, no matter where they're ranked. That goes for the American as well. I think that's the next step for these power conferences when they fix the playoffs, is to basically separate from the G5, whatever they're called now, the G6, separate from them. Give the G6 their own playoff to where the MAC, the Mountain West, the American, the Sun Belt, and Conference USA, those teams are battling it out against each other. Run it parallel with the Power 5 championship, just like the NCAA does with FCS, with Division II and Division III. Simple as that. Simple fix. And this is the kicker. Get bowl games that might be a little bit bigger than what MAC teams and that are used to going to. There's no GMAC Bowl. There's nothing like that. Give them the Liberty Bowl. Give them the Music City Bowl. Something that is warranted, and have a playoff system that mirrors the FBS playoff. And make it to where these bowl games are relevant. You're playing them on neutral sites. You do that at the NCAA tournament. That's the way they handle it. You can still do that and have a 12 to 16 team playoff at the group of 5 level. Maybe an 8-team playoff if you don't want that many teams. And you just let them play and you have a good time. You can do automatic qualifiers as well. The conference champion of the Sun Belt, the Mountain West, the American, all of that gets into the tournament. And the only way that a team can get from the G5 tournament into the big boy tournament is by finishing in the top 8. If you finish in the top 8, you can go. Maybe in the top 12. If you qualify in the college football playoff poll at 11, you can make it into the big boy tournament. But you're not guaranteed an automatic bid. You have your own tournament. That is my thought. I am very adamant about that. You can tell by my voice that I do not think that G5 schools belong in this big boy playoff. We need to quit this nonsense. We want the best tournament available. We don't need to automatically just throw in a 16 seed to get whipped up on by the number 5 seed. That team should not exist. And you're in a situation if the Power 5 this year, if they didn't do it, if they didn't play this silly game, you would have Oklahoma playing Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl instead of Oregon absolutely boat racing Liberty that had no business there in the first place. Yeah, you went undefeated. That's great. That's super. That's awesome. You didn't go undefeated against them. And playing them is more important than not playing them. It just kind of is what it is. Needs to separate. It needs to be different as well. So that's my thoughts on that. Still more to come on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ole Miss is on the road at Mississippi State tonight as part of the Rebels' quest to win 4 out of their last 6 over the next 3 weeks. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite teams and NBA players with quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and much, much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. And shout out to the everydayers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. Be part of history. All right, Ole Miss is at Mississippi State playing in Starkville tonight. And it would be really cool if Ole Miss could pull out the win here and give David Holly a 65th birthday present in Starkville and in the basketball Egg Bowl. This is going to be a massive, massive basketball game for Mississippi State and honestly for Ole Miss. This is a big game, and basketball games in Mississippi traditionally have not been to this level. It is really kind of cool to have two good basketball programs in the state of Mississippi. And Ole Miss and State had a little bit of a war in the first game of the series this year. Now it goes down to Starkville, where traditionally Ole Miss doesn't win in Starkville, just like Mississippi State traditionally doesn't win in Oxford. So we'll see how it looks. Now, if you look at Ole Miss's basketball season, like I said, Ole Miss needs to go 4-2 over their last 6 games. That includes at Mississippi State. That includes playing Alabama. That includes playing at Georgia and at Missouri. That includes home games against South Carolina and Texas A&M. So the schedule, while it's doable, it's going to be difficult. Just automatically assume that all these games is difficult. Nobody's thinking it's a cakewalk, but Ole Miss can win 4 out of 6 of these games. And it could start tonight. If Ole Miss can figure out a way to get a victory on the road in Starkville, it will be a major, major accomplishment, because then at that point, Ole Miss just has to go 3-2 for the remainder of their games. And you've got a little bit of margin for error, because the Alabama game at home is going to be tough. It just is. Alabama is a genuinely good basketball team. If you can get through this one, this is your probable second toughest game left on your schedule. If you can figure out a way to get it, figure out a way to win that game, 3-2 the rest of your game. With South Carolina, a game that you can win at home, but South Carolina can rise up and pop you as well. You have that Alabama game. You have Texas A&M, who can be good, who can be meh, who can be bad, because they did get beat by Vanderbilt, but they beat Tennessee. So it could go one way or the other. Georgia just feels like they're a little bit out of gas. And then at Missouri, we saw the Missouri game just Saturday. That can get squirrely as well. But Ole Miss going 4-2, it can absolutely happen. They have the talent to get it done. It sure would get a whole lot easier if Ole Miss would win the game tonight against Mississippi State. And besides, Josh Hubbard, I enjoy watching Josh Hubbard, and I hate that Chris Beard wasn't able to hold on to him as a player. He's just a genuinely good basketball player to where you enjoy watching him. And when you watch Mississippi State, and this is not a shot at Mississippi State, so before anybody thinks about that, it's a situation where when you watch Josh Hubbard, he is so unlike the other players on the basketball team. It's like Josh Hubbard looks like a Harlem Globetrotter, and the rest of the Mississippi State's basketball team looks like a Washington General. And it's not that case. It's not that way. It's just their style of play is so differently. And Josh Hubbard is such an alpha dog. It's going to be imperative that Ole Miss lines up, puts Matthew Morrell on him to where he's having to go against somebody that's 6'4", who has the athletic ability to guard him and force other players to win the game. You cannot get beaten tonight by Josh Hubbard. You can't. You cannot lose the game because of Josh Hubbard. If you do that, if you let Josh Hubbard beat you, you might get walked out of the gym in Starkville tonight. So we'll see exactly how it goes. I'm looking forward to the ball game, honestly, and I'm looking forward to seeing if Juju Murray can continue his hot streak that he had in the Missouri game. If we'll see Matthew Morrell continue to be one of the better players in the Southeastern Conference. And is Ole Miss going to go small from time to time in this game? I realize that with the state post players, they're going to want to be big because of the block party that can happen. But I genuinely like when Ole Miss goes small from time to time and blast in the game. I'm curious about that, and I want to see if Austin Nunez plays a good bit tonight as well. Should be a whole lot of fun. That's in Humphrey Coliseum tonight. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, as we have Barrett Salee and Chris Childers slated for this weekend. Also this weekend is the migration on the audio side of the podcast. This weekend, check out the YouTube link. If not, you can wait until Monday afternoon, and all the videos from this week will be showing up. But this weekend between like 2 o'clock on Friday and noon on Monday, nothing will be uploaded on the audio feed. After that, everything should show up and everything should be fine, but it's just moving over and migrating from one podcast host to another. We've just outgrown this one. And this wanted to do this in February and get ready for football season because this year could be a whole lot of fun. So we'll see exactly how that goes, but you can hear about everything leading up to this football season right here. But for your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. For those of you on YouTube, we'll send you there right now. Happy birthday, David Holly, big 65, and everybody else, hotty toddy. Take care.